Welcome to another edition of SaaS Builders, and I'm your host, Jefferson Nunn. And today I'm joined by very special guests, Lou and Sherri with the Lou Everett Group. And it's great to have you. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about yourself, Jefferson?
Awesome. So I heard a lot of great things about y'all and wanted to dig into a little bit more. I know you help a lot of people become very successful. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do and what you got going?
Absolutely. Yeah, we sure can. Did you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yeah. All righty. So we are the Lou Everett Group. I'm Sherri and this is Lou. We are a husband and wife duo, and we are business and executive leadership coaches and corporate trainers. And what we love to do is a focus on leadership development and effective communication for small businesses. And we do that by providing direct strategies to really help build leaders from within, as well as prevent toxic work cultures and provide compliance training such as diversity and inclusion. So we love transforming today's leaders through our coaching, training, and educating.
That's fantastic. And I know there's a lot of startup groups, they're just getting going. They have a great idea and then they hit a wall and, it could be pretty traumatic. So could you tell me a little bit about what happened next if they managed to find you guys? What's next?
Well, see, when you're starting a business, a lot of times we step into something or we find an opportunity and we jump into it. And we tend to skip a couple of steps. And one of those steps is identifying really what your passion, what your purpose is, and what is your why. That is always the first step in anything that we do when it comes to business. So unfortunately, a lot of times we hop into opportunity and hopefully expecting the best, right? We expect the best, we work really hard, but we get in and realize, well, hold on a second, there's more to this than I thought there was going to be, and I'm not really sure what to do next. And so in that case, we begin to work with you and work with those individuals to identify what that is, where they currently are, and then understand where it is that they really want to be. What does that success look like? What does it feel like? What does it look like monetarily? What does it look like physically? A new home, new this, new that, whatever, and identify what that success looks like, and then create a plan based upon that.
That's brilliant. And I know, like we had talked about before, there was a lot of startup businesses. They were, for example, the one that I know of, she's come up with a really great idea, and she's just trying to figure out how to get it to market. Perhaps, she needs to work with other people or other teams or whatever. So can you tell me a little bit more about what's next in that case?
Yeah. Well, in that case, then we would need to identify exactly, again, why it is that she does what she does. Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to do what you do? And what does that success look like? And when she identifies that piece of it, then we can work backwards. See, the reality of it is, Jefferson, is that anything that we do, we need to have it with our end in mind first. We have to start at the end. We always tend to start in the beginning. Okay, we're here, but where do we go? Well, I don't know. Let's see, what does that end result look like? It's like a GPS, right? If you turn on your GPS and you don't know you don't put the starting point in or where your ending point is, then you're not going to really go anywhere. You might eventually get to where you feel like you want to be, but you're kind of just driving around in the wind. And that's really how GPS works from a programming perspective. I had a friend of mine years ago, and I have an IT background, but I'm not in programming, never been in programming. And he explained that the GPS programming, how it's programmed, is programmed to start from the end and work its way backwards so that you know how to get there. And so that is exactly how it works also when it comes down to finding our success in whatever it is that we decide to do. We've got to turn on that GPS. We've got to find out what that end looks like, then work our way backwards to what steps we need to take to get there. And what we do is we facilitate, or we're the catalyst, if you will, for that person, asking the right questions, kind of pulling out that realization of what that picture and what that frame looks like.
Yeah, my youngest, 5 years old, he just started kindergarten. He brought home one of those little books that had all kinds of activities in it. One of them is the maze, and I already saw him drawing backwards from the end of the maze. And I'm like, nice. Smart kid. That's how to do it.
That's exactly right.
But But seriously, I mean, I think that's part of the thing a lot of folks don't realize is that you got to start with the end in mind. Otherwise, you're never going to get there.
That's right. Right.
And then, but I know you talked about a couple of success stories. Can you tell me about one of them? I think you mentioned a plumber.
Or maybe the electrician.
Oh, the electrician. That's what it was.
Yes, the electrician. Did you want me to take that, or
Yeah, you can take that one. And I'd love to share another one of
Sure.
feedback that we have as well. So
Yeah,
I'd love to share that.
that's true. Yeah. Well, yes, so one of our clients, we call them partners. So if you hear us say partners, that's what we're talking about, our clients, because we are partnering with them in their success. But Ryan is a great example of this. He's owns his own electrician company. He is an electrician by trade. About 2 years in business or so, probably going on 3 years now. And when he started, he was on his own, like most of us are. And he grew his business almost to the point of needing somebody. Wasn't sure if he could afford it. You know, the normal challenges of growing a business. And he brought us in, connected with us, and he had just hired on another full-time electrician. And last year, and he's been with us now, it'll be a full year next month that he's been with us. And we are now looking at, he just hired another part-timer. He's going to be looking for another full-time electrician. Last year, this company profited last year $65K, really small. This year, they're already on track to hitting $250K profit in the company, looking for another full-time electrician. Again, and it all depends on really what his focus is. And his focus is being able to have the availability for his family, but also he has a deeper purpose in what his mission is for his business. And that is to set himself apart from other people in his trade and how they service their clients. And he is doing that through following the process, through creating the vision of what that empowered future looks like for him. And he's following that process that he's created through the process that we go through. And he's being very successful at it. I mean, we're looking at over 200% growth in revenue and in business growth over the last year. So that's just one who has worked with us. Now, again, it's because he put into the work. You can connect with any coach that you want, but if you're not putting in the work or following the process, then but then expecting change, it's not going to work. You can't do the same thing over and over again and expect something different, a different result. It's not going to work that way. Well, in his case, he's seen highly successful rate here. And actually, because he put it up and he says, well, I'm on track to make it 250. And so that's awesome. Well, what can we do to do better? If you do everything you're doing right now and you do the same thing you're doing right now, what you're telling me is that you're on track for 250K. Well, what can you do to raise that? And what should we look at for that? And we're going down to the wire at the end of the year. How can we increase that from 250 to something different? So he came up with a new goal for the end of the year, and he's going to make that new goal and surpass what his accountant is telling him he's on his way to do. So again, he's taken his empowered future, putting it in his hands instead of something else and somebody else and other surroundings. So that's just one example of a person that we're working with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we have another fabulous partnership with us as well. She's been with us for almost 2 years, but when she first started with us, she was about 3-4 months or a year and 3 months into her business. She just had hired on a part-time employee, which she didn't know how she was going to afford her going forward, and she only had about a handful of clients, less than 5. And, honestly, being with us, being that open-mindedness, putting in the work, she actually tripled her business in less than 6 months being with us. It was actually probably 3 months.
It was like 3.5
with
months,
us. So she tripled her business. Now that she's been with us for, almost going on 2 years, she has not only, had no problems finding the part-time now to that full-time, but she's also increased her staff. She's also making her own paycheck that she can take breathing time.
Yes, she's paying herself, which she
paying
wasn't doing in the beginning.
Right, what she was not doing, and actually surpassed her amount of her clients that she wanted with that. So she has seen actually up to 500% growth in being with us in the short amount of time. But again, it all goes back to, are you going to put the work in and really working that journey every step of the way.
Fantastic. Well, tell me more about how y'all got started. I mean, this is a very different industry than, say, IT, right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, we both come from a management and corporate backgrounds in all different spaces, but we started together, working together in our own business 2005. But as any other entrepreneur knows, that generally you start out small and work your way into it, especially if you have no other choice, if you're working full time to fund your business, right? You're working for other people. This is what we were doing. And that was a successful business. We realized we were good at it. And as we continued on, we realized that there was this gap in corporate. There was this gap in companies and in especially in small businesses, and just fully understanding things that help them become more successful faster. You know, the rate of businesses that close or that fail within the first 2 years is just astronomical in comparison to how many start. And now that we're going through what we call the Great Resignation, right? During COVID, people resigning from their job, they're retiring to start new businesses, new ventures, because they've had opportunity and time to look at their situation and try to find better alternatives. And what better alternative than to work for yourself? And I think that that's what's drawn a lot of individuals into doing that. So in that case, then we realized that there was a big need. And in 2017, we revamped and started this business full time. I did anyhow. Sherri was still working out in the industry as well. So we were both kind of transitioning into this full time business that we do now. And we were very successful at it. We realized there was a lot more people out there that needed us more than we realized. But then something tragic really happened to us in 2018 that really put the nail in the coffin for us, if you will, of our old corporate world, and realized we need to continue doing what we're doing, and really fired us up for what it is that we do. And you can tell them that story, what happened there.
Yeah, so you know, in the short story, I guess you could say, is back in August of 2018, I landed myself in a hospital in the ICU in the burn center for 10 days with a rare disease. I was working with an organization at that time where leadership was more focused on the bottom line than they were valuing their employees anymore. So I pretty much ran myself ragged and keeping up with everything that needed to be done. But the way that the culture was turning into was very toxic, verbal abuse, and expectations of working 70 plus hours a week. So it wore my system down, and working so hard. And it's a very common theme, right? First one's in, last one's out, work. And unfortunately, a lot of people very similar have burnt out from such a toxic work environment. So I had a newfound purpose living through that, and realized that you know, we can be influencers, and being in whatever role that it may be, and leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so it really helped me deep dive into more personal development that really gave me some eye-opening experiences. And I want to help more, and we want to help more, because we found that there is that gap where, you know, you get to these new roles or maybe a new position, and then 6 months later, they typically get fired or let go because you didn't meet the metrics. I'm like, well, that's not 100% fault of the employee. It's actually the organization did not equip them properly. They gave them a bow, but not an arrow. So it's like, okay, go hunt, right? And, you know, it's interesting how that is a continual model that's out there. It's unfortunate. So we're, you know, part of that playing field to change that up. You know, focusing on the skills that you need. Pre-pandemic skills are different than they're going to be in post-pandemic. And we really have to get that message out to any leaders of any position so we can move forward.
Yep. Now, you know, the bottom line is interesting, right? Because even then, and we talk about leaders a lot, and yeah, there's that negative influence that happened there because of the stressors is what caused Sherri and her body to kind of revolt against the stressor, which unfortunately is common. But there's another part of leadership that we got to focus on, and that is the leaders themselves. And both of us as executive level, corporate level leaders, is we need to we've understood and seen that there is a gap with understanding how do I communicate the bottom line to those that I lead without affecting and impacting the influence that I have on them to have them complete the mission or complete the goals and want to do that so they overachieve. How do I do that? And that's really where the challenge comes in. And our belief is that when a leader can open up and realize that there is a need to continue to grow and understand how can I connect with those that I lead in a way that causes them to want to follow me, not follow me because they have to. Because if they want to, they're going to not just accomplish the bottom line, they're going to be happy, they're going to retain good people, and they're going to work for you. That has been our mission all along. And it all starts really with the person that starts that business. It all starts with that person and those people that are there at that level. And so it's a big part of our heart to really show individuals that there is opportunity to be successful if we understand the purpose.
That's incredible. And it's an incredible and inspiring story that I think a lot of people would be excited to learn about, hear about, and to support. There's one thing I noticed, and I think y'all mentioned it too, with the great resignation. A lot of people are leaving pretty well established, granted, not well put together, but well established corporate structures, which are also not very agile. They're put together in a way that was definitely not even 2018, I would say circa 2015 realities. But still, there's a certain structure, there's a certain overhead that's there, and even support structure that's there. When you leave, a lot of that is now not there. And I think that's what leads to a lot of floundering for some people, or even a lot of uncertainty. So can you talk to that a little bit about, okay, now how do we get that structure that we need?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think the biggest thing about this, maybe you can express this too, but is the accountability piece of being a business owner, right? When you leave, when you start your own business, we get excited and it's that beginner's mindset, right? We're pumped, we're ready to go. We know what we've got to do. We start moving towards that direction. And then there's these moments of stuckness that arise that we're not too sure how to get over, or there's moments of, when the mornings come when you don't really feel like going to work, when you were working for corporate or working for companies, you know what you did? You got up and you did it anyway, because you know that was, you have to be held accountable for not being there. And so the accountability part of what we do is the most important. And so having an accountability partner like us to hold your feet to the fire, to the passion and purpose and why that you've created to get there. That's the biggest part that's missing when you work on your own. When you become independent, you can go out there and network all you want, have all of these connections. And the challenges is we tend to look at those connections as friends, which is okay. You can have certain friends in those connections, but you need an accountability partner that's not a friend, someone that's going to tell you where you're lacking and not going to have any of those feelings of, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings kind of thing. We've got to be, because your success is dependent upon being able to follow a plan, being able to follow structure to where you are successful to where you want to be. You have to do that. And once you leave a company and that comfort zone, if you will, you are the only one that's going to do that. And you've got to get the right people in your tribe, if you will. You got to get the right people there. And those right people are going to be the ones that direct you, guide you, push you, hold you accountable to your successes. So that is what we do. And that's what I highly suggest any business owner to do, to be sure that we have coaches, we have mentors for us, which is something we should have done back in 2005. We did, but we didn't fully understand the value of it until a little bit later on. So that's what we would suggest, and to kind of understand that without that part of your business, that accountability piece, and you can't be accountable on your own, it doesn't work, right? You've got to have somebody else there to be accountable for you, because we can convince ourselves of anything. That's normal. Right. We've got to have somebody else there. something else, another level, different perception, if you will, perceiving things. They're not inside the picture with you. They're outside looking in. That can help guide you and give you that accountability. What would you say to that?
Yeah, my added to that was just to, as entrepreneurs, and we've seen this time and time again, is that as you're building your business, whatever space that you're in, trade, service, is that do not look at your business as your baby. That's probably the biggest mistake to think on a mindset piece, is that you really need to think of it as you're building a machine. You're building something, you're building for that legacy, you're building for that long term. And again, going back to your purpose and why, that is your North Star. Why am I starting this business? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Right. And the journey is not for everybody, right? You know, it sounds all well and good, but boy, there's a lot to it. You know, I like to equate it with either two things, either the duck that is on the water and looks, you know, nice and smooth and then paddling like mad right underneath, or the iceberg, right? You see the beautiful iceberg, but then you see underneath it goes a lot deeper, right? So there's a lot to it. So that's my number one thing is in through our journey is that do not look at your business as your baby. You tend to hoard it. You want to, you know, I can only do everything. And actually we need people. So looking at as a business owner and ownership to running a business. So it's a great, big mind shift.
Yeah, agree.
Awesome. Well, there was a umbrella story I think you started to tell me the other day. Could you tell me more about how that worked?
Yeah, I think that was the sleeping bag story.
The sleeping bag story.
Yes, yeah, the sleeping bag story. And we use this analogy a lot because sometimes, and I always say, well, you got to step out of the sleeping bag to kind of see a different perspective, right? Well, just one of our clients was on our session. He is telling me this story. I asked him how his week had been. And he had said, well, you know, I had a couple of friends of mine call me up and asked me to go camping with them. And I had never gone camping before. So I figured, why not? I've never done it before. Let's step out of my comfort zone and try something different. But the fact of the matter is because he never went camping before, he didn't have any gear, didn't have a tent, didn't have a sleeping bag, didn't have any gear to camp. So he let his friends know, hey, listen, I'm gonna stop by Walmart on the way, and so there's a Walmart right there. I'll stop there on the way to see if there's any gear, right? Anything I can pick up, tent or, you know, a sleeping bag or something. So as he's going and he pulls into the parking lot of Walmart there close by, about an hour or so out, he called his friends and said, I'm here at Walmart parking lot. I'm going to go in and pick a couple things up and I'll be out there. And he said, don't worry about it. Actually, there's a Bass Pro Shop right around the corner here. That's right from the campground. You can just go there when you're here. He goes, oh, great. So he gets back in his car, heads out. He arrives and come to realize that there is no Bass Pro Shop there. They had mistakenly thought that there was a place there. So he looked at his GPS, sent it back to Walmart nearby. So they went back to Walmart, goes in, and the only thing that they have there is a sleeping bag. They didn't have a tent. They didn't have anything else. They had one sleeping bag. So he got the sleeping bag and figured, you know what, I'll just sleep under the stars. I'll enjoy the night. It'll be beautiful out. And mind you, this is out at Hatteras Island. So it's right there by the water. It gets nice and cool at night, right? So that night he's out there underneath the stars in his sleeping bag, outside a tent, beautiful out. And he's loving this. Falls asleep, but then he wakes up with wind starting to just pick up. The wind starts to pick up. It starts getting a little colder. So he was freezing. So he bundles up, even takes his clothes out of the bag he had brought with him and stuffed it in his shirt or inside the sleeping bag, bundles up, freezing, tries to get cold, fights it almost all night. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, he had enough. He got out of his sleeping bag. He's like, all right, I might as well get up. So he gets up, looks down and says to himself, after he realizes when he was looking at it, says, I could have just turned this sleeping bag the other direction, and then the wind would not have gone in my sleeping bag. It would have just gone right over me and it wouldn't have been so cold. Sometimes we just have to step out of the sleeping bag to look at it from a different perspective. And that's what we do. We help you get out of the picture, get out of that sleeping bag so you can see it from a different perspective to be able to make a judgment call or decision on what direction to go in your business.
Incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. That was great.
Sure.
So, well, this has been a great session. Do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, come out. We would love to have anybody reach out. We would love to have a conversation with you, but we would like to give a free gift to your audience. We're talking about passion and purpose and your why, and we'd love to give you that to the audience. It's just a free action guide just to help you to find that passion, purpose, and why. And we'll send the link to you so your audience can have it. But feel free to actually reach out to us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram at LouEverettGroup.com.
Same with the website. Our website is www.loueverettgroup.com. Our numbers there, contacts there. We actually answer our phone now. And most people don't pick up the phones. We talk on the phone. So feel free to reach out. We'd be more than happy to connect you up with what it is that you need to overcome the stuckness and that feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of uncertainty, that feeling of when's my next client going to be here? Or I have a client that doesn't pay. All of these things that we can help you overcome with identifying what it is that where you are now, where you intend to be, and following a process along the way.
Well, thank you very much, Lou and Sherri. It was a great session. Thank you for the gift. I'm going to definitely pass that along to our viewers and listeners. And we're great to have a follow-up session, maybe about a year, find out how things are going.
Sure. That sounds
absolutely
great, Jefferson. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks.